Imagine finding a 31-page, completely unvarnished, handwritten diary tucked away in some dusty archive. You know, you open it up expecting this simple travelogue, maybe some notes on local agriculture or something.
Right, like a basic merchant's ledger.
Exactly. But within the first few paragraphs, you realize you are reading a minute-by-minute, totally visceral account of a violent, hostile takeover of a frontier town.
It's incredibly raw. It's entirely unsanitized.
Yeah, I mean, there are literally bloodstains on the margins of this thing.
Yeah.
And mathematical calculations detailing exactly how much force it takes to, like, shatter a local government.
Which is the absolute antithesis of the polished, leather-bound textbooks we usually rely on for history, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
In traditional historical documentation, all that chaos gets filtered out. A historian looks back, connects the dots, and just presents this neat, inevitable timeline. But this text, this is history written in the mud, right, while the arrows are still flying.
And that is exactly what we have on the table today for this deep dive. I mean, welcome everyone. We are looking at a stack of incredibly unique primary source material today.
Yeah, this handwritten chronicle, it details a sweeping, deeply complicated adventure.
Right, it's a session-by-session log that tracks 5 individuals, 5 independent contractors who just walk into a power vacuum and completely upend the geopolitical landscape of an entire region.
And we really need to understand who these 5 people are because, honestly, their specific backgrounds inform, like, every single chaotic decision they make.
Yeah, they do. And the author of the text uses this highly specialized, almost clinical shorthand to categorize their abilities and their social standing.
So who are we looking at here?
Okay, so first we have Zatoria. She's described as a tiefling warlock. And in the context of this world, that means she has this infernal heritage, right? Something that instantly makes her an outsider.
Right, and she's forged a dangerous pact for arcane power, which implies a serious level of ambition.
Yeah, a willingness to bypass traditional structures to get exactly what she wants. Then we have Clarity, a Genasi ranger.
Someone with an elemental attunement.
Oh.
Okay, so fundamentally a survivalist.
Exactly. Then there's Sal, a high elf rogue. He brings this sort of aristocratic infiltration skill set.
A very specific kind of operative.
Right. Then Karen, an Aasimar cleric, who is divinely touched and acts as their moral and physical anchor, I guess. And finally, Phandelver, a half-elf druid.
Deeply connected to the natural world, but caught between 2 cultures.
Yeah. So you have this eclectic group, and if you just skim the surface of these 31 pages, you might mistakenly dismiss it as a simple fantasy narrative.
Oh, for sure. You'd think, okay, swords, spells, the occasional monster.
Yeah. But if you actually analyze the interactions, the economic exchanges, and the shifting loyalties, this text reveals itself as a brilliant, dramatic story arc.
It really is a masterclass in frontier politics.
And I want to focus on that phrase right there, frontier politics. Because our goal today isn't just to recount who hit whom with a mace.
Right, we're not just reading a combat log.
Exactly. We are going to treat this chronicle as a complex case study. We're looking at what happens when the illusion of civilized authority just collapses.
And how underlying social tensions can turn a sleepy town into a literal war zone.
Yeah. And the escalation is what makes this so compelling. I mean, the entire saga begins with the most mundane premise imaginable.
It is essentially ancient gig work.
Yes. Ancient gig work. These 5 are hired for a simple escort job. 10 gold pieces to transport some supplies from point A to point B.
But the world they're operating in is so inherently volatile that this simple delivery job just rapidly, violently evolves.
Right, because before they even reach their destination, they are pulled into this ridiculously complex web. We're talking corrupt local officials, a shadowy mercenary syndicate extorting civilians.
And eventually an encroaching, massive imperial power known as the Lord's Alliance.
Exactly. So picture the scene. It's this dusty, treacherous stretch of dirt known as the Tribor Trail.
A classic frontier road.
Yeah. And the party has been hired by a dwarf named Gundren Rockseeker to bring a cart of wares to a settlement called Phandelver.
It's quiet. Maybe a little too quiet.
Way too quiet. And then the inciting incident hits them before they've even truly begun. The notes detail this opening sequence with brutal efficiency.
Right, the party is moving along the trail and the path is suddenly blocked.
Not by a fallen tree, but by 2 dead horses. And the chronicler notes that upon a quick, really tense investigation, the party realizes these horses didn't just die of exhaustion.
No, they are riddled with black-fletched arrows.
Yeah, and more terrifyingly, they recognize the horses. They belong to Gundren's personal bodyguard, a woman named Silda Hornwender.
Which is such a massive psychological shock tactic. It immediately communicates to the party and to us reading it that whoever hired them is already compromised.
The employer is gone. The safety net is totally gone.
Exactly. And before they can even process the implications of Silda's dead horses, the trap is sprung.
The brush on the sides of the road just erupts. They are ambushed by goblins. It's pure chaos, right?
Oh, arrows flying, people screaming, the cart horses panicking.
It's a violent, super abrupt welcome to the reality of the frontier.
And this initial ambush is narratively and sociologically crucial. I mean, it establishes the baseline reality of this environment. The wilderness here is entirely untamed.
Yeah, there is no town guard coming over the hill to save you.
Right. Survival requires immediate, tactical, and frankly, lethal action. It enforces this really hard truth that authority only exists where it can be physically enforced.
The moment you are out of eyesight of a town's limits, the social contract is completely null and void.
It's the rawest form of survival of the fittest.
It really is. And the chronicler writes about this skirmish using this peculiar, rigid mathematical language, like tracking exactly how much physical trauma each person can take before collapsing.
It's a very clinical way of describing a frantic fight for your life.
Yeah. But they survive. They fight off the ambush, gather themselves, and eventually push the cart into the town of Phandelver.
Now, normally, reaching the destination implies safety. You cross the threshold of civilization and you can finally exhale, right?
But that's the twist. They arrive in Phandelver expecting a hot meal and a safe bed, and instead, they find a community completely paralyzed by social tension.
The violence of the road hasn't disappeared at all.
No, it is simply put on a different mask and moved into the taverns and the streets. We really need to break down the factions within this town, because this is where the geopolitical maneuvering starts.
It's a total powder keg.
Yeah. First you have the ordinary townsfolk. These are the people trying to make an honest living, represented in the text by a man named Elmar the supplier.
And the party hands their goods over to Elmar, but you can feel the economic anxiety just reading the notes.
Absolutely. Suppliers can't get goods because the roads are dangerous, but they also can't make a profit because of the internal corruption.
Which brings us to the second faction, the Red Brands.
Right, the notes frequently refer to them as the mercenaries, or just mercs. They're essentially a localized mafia.
Yeah, a gang of thugs wearing red cloaks who are actively shaking down the local businesses, harassing the citizens, and running the town through pure intimidation.
And this brings us to the most frustrating and maybe most realistic faction, the legitimate authority. The town master, a man named Harbin Wester.
Ugh, Harbin Wester, he is a study in bureaucratic cowardice.
Oh, completely. The notes have this highly specific detail scrawled in the margins that tells you everything you need to know about his leadership style.
It's such a brilliant administrative detail, too. The party goes to the town master's hall expecting him to be managing this crisis.
And outside his office, Harbin Wester has a bounty posted. He is offering 15 to 20 gold pieces a head for orc bandits out on the Tribord Trail.
Right. So he is perfectly willing to pay out of the town coffers to deal with threats that are miles away from his own front door.
Exactly. But when the party confronts him about the Red Brands, the thugs who are currently terrorizing the people directly outside his window, the notes explicitly state his response.
Oh, I love this quote. Bandits in town don't exist. Merc guild suspecting paid-off mayor.
Bandits in town don't exist. That is such a spectacularly, infuriatingly bureaucratic lie.
It is the weaponization of administrative language. Harbin Wester uses a loophole reclassifying violent extortionists as a legitimate mercenary guild to completely ignore reality.
Yeah, he is sanctioning their thuggery to keep his own hands clean and his office safe.
By refusing to acknowledge the Red Brands as a threat, he legally abdicates his responsibility to protect his constituents.
It forces the civilians into an impossible choice, right? Quietly endure the extortion or risk their lives fighting back without any legal backing whatsoever.
It creates a massive vacuum of legitimate power, and history tells us that power vacuums are never empty for long.
No, never.
When a government fails to protect its people, the people will inevitably turn to whoever possesses the capacity for violence to fill that role.
Which perfectly sets the stage for our 5 contractors. They walk into this town, they see this cowardly mayor hiding behind a desk, they see the citizens suffering.
And they collectively decide, well, somebody has to do something.
Right. And this leads to what I consider the most cinematic, tension-filled sequence in the early pages of this chronicle, the spark of rebellion at the Sleeping Giant Tavern.
Oh, this scene is a masterclass in asymmetrical escalation.
It really is. The party scopes out the town, and realizes the sleeping giant is the primary hangout for these Red Brand mercs. It's their turf.
So Zeteria, the warlock, and Pander, the druid, decide to run a deeply unconventional play.
Yeah, they don't walk in with weapons drawn. They walk in pretending to be completely obnoxiously intoxicated.
They are acting as human lures. They're utilizing the social expectations of a tavern environment to close the distance without raising alarms.
The notes describe them stumbling around, sloshing alcohol everywhere, bumping into tables.
Deliberately creating a scene that cannot be ignored by the people who consider themselves the owners of the bar.
And it works perfectly. A Red Brand merc gets aggressive. He approaches them, trying to assert dominance, and just starts bad-mouthing Zeteria.
He takes the bait, and he assumes he is dealing with a nuisance, not a lethal threat.
He couldn't be more wrong. The moment the merc gets within striking distance, the facade drops completely.
It's so abrupt.
Right. Pander doesn't even draw a blade. He just takes the heavy, ale-filled tankard he was sloshing around and smacks the merc brutally over the head.
A stunning, blunt force initiation of combat.
And in the very next heartbeat, before anyone can even react to the sound of the impact, Zeteria and Pander synchronize their magic.
The chronicler writes this down with such brevity, Z and P synced burning hands.
It is an incredible visual. You have these two seemingly helpless, stumbling drunks who suddenly plant their feet, weave their hands in unison.
And just unleash synchronized, devastating cones of fire right into the center of the tavern.
The psychological shock of that transition is immense. They turn a low-level bar brawl into a high-casualty magical engagement in less than 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's wild. But hold on, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Because reading this, it's thrilling, sure. But if we compare this to striking a match in a powder keg, was this actually a smart tactical move for justice?
That's a very fair question.
I mean, these heroes just unleashed raw fire magic inside a crowded wooden building. They're acting as judge, jury, and executioners with zero official jurisdiction.
Yeah, did they just solve a problem, or did they just bring an entirely new level of chaos to a town that was already on the brink?
That is the central defining dilemma of frontier justice. When the established authority like Harbin Wester is irredeemably corrupt or incompetent, does righteous violence become the only viable mechanism for change?
Right. They didn't ignite the corruption in Phandelver, but they certainly made the executive decision to burn the corrupt establishment to the ground.
Exactly. However, you are entirely correct to point out the recklessness. You cannot simply torch a local syndicate's members without triggering massive retaliation.
And the consequences are immediate. The aftermath of that bar fight doesn't result in the town throwing a parade.
No, not at all.
It results in a frantic scramble that actually splits the party. The local authorities corrupt, as they are managed, to arrest Sal, the rogue. He ends up in a jail cell.
Because the syndicate still controls the administrative levers of the town, they can legally classify Sal as a public menace for the tavern fire.
Exactly. So now, the remaining party members can't just rest. They have to mount a rescue operation for Sal, which completely forces their hand.
They can no longer just skirmish in the streets, they have to cut the head off the snake.
Right, which drives them to seek out the Red Brand mercenary hideout. They discover it's located in a subterranean complex under the ruins of an old estate called Trizendar Manor.
And the transition from the streets of Phandelver to the dungeons of Trizendar Manor marks a critical shift in the narrative.
It really does. This is no longer just a local dispute.
Exactly. As they delve into this complex, they begin pulling at threads that unravel a much larger systemic conspiracy.
And the physical descent into the hideout is fascinating. The chronicler's notes on the dungeon crawl read like a tactical manual.
Yeah, finding hidden doors concealed in the stonework.
Right, they stumble upon a makeshift prison and end up rescuing a kidnapped local family, a mother named Myrna, and her children Nilsa and Nars.
And the notes mention that the husband was murdered for simply standing up to the mercs.
Which really reinforces the grim reality of what the Red Brands were actually doing, while the mayor just looked the other way.
They are encountering the physical evidence of the town's buried trauma down there.
And the deeper they go, the weirder it gets. I mean, they enter a crypt where they literally have to fight 3 animated skeletons perched atop ancient stone sarcophagi.
Classic dungeon elements, but it's escalating.
Yeah, but all of this, the traps, the hostages, the undead,
Yeah.
it all builds to a massive jaw-dropping reveal when they finally breach the inner sanctum.
They corner the leader of the mercenaries, a wizard who goes by the street name Glassstaff.
And the true identity of Glassstaff is the linchpin of this entire political saga.
Oh, absolutely.
According to the notes, when they corner him, they realize Glassstaff is not some local thug who learned a few parlor tricks. He is an educated, dangerous man named Iarno Albrecht.
And this is where the local frontier politics suddenly go global.
Because earlier in their travels, the party had met a very specific contact named Farron.
Farron is the catalyst for the geopolitical twist here.
Right. Farron introduced himself as an agent for the Lord's Alliance. And for context, the Lord's Alliance is not some local guild. It is a massive, powerful coalition of cities, rulers, and nobles.
It's an imperial institutional superpower.
Yes, and when the party met Farron, he casually dropped a terrifying piece of information. Iarno Albrecht, the man currently terrorizing Phandelver as a gang leader, is a former acquaintance of his.
He is an ex-member of their bureaucratic apparatus.
Exactly. And Farron explicitly requested that if the party encountered Iarno, they were to spare him. Farron offered a significant bounty in gold to bring Glassstaff back alive.
If we pause and analyze the implications of this request, it is chilling.
It really is.
This is the exact moment the party, and you, the reader, realizes these heroes are just pawns on a much larger chessboard.
Yeah, the Lord's Alliance has discovered that one of their own agents, Iarno, went rogue.
Right. Instead of carrying out his duties, he traveled to the frontier, leveraged his advanced magical training, and set himself up as a petty dictator over these defenseless villagers.
But the Lord's Alliance doesn't send in a battalion of highly trained paladins to liberate the town. They don't make public apology?
No, they send one guy, Farron, in plain clothes, to quietly hire some local contractors to sweep the mess under the rug.
It is an exercise in extreme damage control.
Precisely. The Lord's Alliance wants to handle their rogue asset internally to protect the institutional reputation of their coalition.
To the Alliance, the suffering of the townsfolk in Phandelver, the brutal extortion, the murder of Myrna's husband, the terrorized children, is entirely secondary to their own political optics.
They are perfectly willing to leverage their vast wealth, paying mercenaries in gold to ensure their dirty laundry is brought home quietly,
rather than being subjected to local, transparent justice.
Exactly. It is incredibly cynical.
It really forces you to realize that the institutions holding the real power in this world don't care about the people of Phandelver in the slightest. The town is just a liability on a ledger.
But amidst all this heavy, cold-blooded political maneuvering, the chronicler recorded a highly specific interaction in the hideout that I absolutely adore.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It provides such a stark, emotional contrast to the heavy-handedness of the Lord's Alliance.
You're referring to the sociological anomaly that is Droop.
Yes, Droop the Goblin.
So deep in the Tresendar hideout, the party opens a door and finds a lone goblin. His name is Droop. He is tied up, completely helpless.
And the notes imply he has been relentlessly abused by the Red Brand mercenaries. He is terrified.
Now, the unwritten rule of this frontier, which we saw in the very first ambush on the road, is that goblins are killed on sight. It's a brutal binary dynamic.
But the party actively rejects that dynamic.
They do. The Chronicle details their interaction with Droop with meticulous care. They don't interrogate him and execute him. They untie him.
They sit down and feed him their own rations.
Yeah, and they don't just set him loose to fend for himself. They actively equip him. The notes list the inventory transfer.
They give him a set of leather armor that fits him. They hand him a crossbow, a shield.
And they even shorten a spear so he can wield it properly. They elevate him from an abused prisoner to a respected member of their crew.
What is so vital to understand here is the sociological implication of what they've done.
Right.
In the rigid hierarchy of these antagonist factions, whether it is the human mercenary gang, or the tribal Kragmaw goblins we see later, or even the shadowy puppet masters pulling the strings, goblins are positioned at the absolute bottom.
They are the disposable, marginalized lower class.
Exactly. They are treated as cannon fodder, thrown into the meat grinder of combat by their superiors without a second thought.
But our party looks at this deeply ingrained societal norm, and they just say, no, we aren't doing that.
By showing Droop radical kindness, by arming him and extending trust, the party severs the cycle of violence that these oppressive systems rely on to maintain power.
Yeah, they prove through action that the rigid, violent hierarchy of the frontier is a choice made by cruel people, not a natural law of the world.
And the narrative payoff for this compassion is brilliant.
Oh, it's so good. The chronicler notes a specific moment much later in the campaign. The party is raiding a stronghold called Kragmaw Castle. Droop is with them.
And he encounters two hobgoblins.
Right. Now, hobgoblins are massive, militaristic, and essentially the brutal overlords of the goblinoid world. They're the very creatures that have likely tormented Droop his entire life.
The math in the notes shows Droop takes a serious hit, sustaining 4 units of physical damage.
But the chronicler specifically underlines what happens next. Droop doesn't run. He stands his ground, hurls a vicious insult at the hobgoblin.
And then actually lands a retaliatory strike.
It is a profound moment of self-actualization for a formerly marginalized character. It's amazing.
It is this tiny, triumphant rebellion against the systems of oppression.
So they deal with Glass Staff, they dismantle the Red Brand operation, and they temporarily stabilize Phandelver.
But as they are looting the hideout, they find a leather bag hidden away and guarded by, because this world is absolutely wild, a captive owlbear.
Yeah, an owlbear. And inside this bag is a map.
A map that points to the underlying disease, not just the symptom.
Exactly. Dealing with the mercenaries was just treating a symptom. The map reveals the location of the legendary Wave Echo Cave.
This is the true source of all the regional conflict.
It is the reason why the dwarves, the local gangs, and unseen puppet masters are all suddenly converging on this forgotten corner of the world.
Because whoever controls Wave Echo Cave controls the geopolitical future of the region.
So the party descends into this massive, ancient cavern system. Their primary objective is to rescue Nundro, one of the Jorf brothers who originally hired them.
Who has been taken captive by whoever's running operations down there.
Right. But their secondary objective is to find the mythical forge of spells hidden deep within. And the environment described in these notes, it is suffocatingly eerie.
It is less of a cave and more of a tomb of ancient hoarded power.
Yeah, the chronicler spends a lot of time detailing the hazards. This isn't just a place with a few guards. The environment itself is hostile.
Right, they encounter these glowing puff fungi that release deadly toxic spores into the air when approached.
And to get past them, the party actually has to use elemental magic to rapidly drop the ambient temperature, freezing the biological triggers of the spores just so they can skate past them safely.
It shows the party transitioning from mere combatants to tactical problem solvers.
And the threats are deeply supernatural. They find a floating, disembodied skull burning with bright green fire.
Oh, that's creepy.
They fight through a chamber where the dust on the floor is actually bone ash. And as they walk, 9 skeletons literally knit themselves back together from the dust to attack them.
The mechanics of this dungeon are fascinating because they perfectly reflect the themes of the broader narrative.
How so?
Every obstacle in Wave Echo Cave requires unraveling the past, coaxing secrets out of people or things that refuse to share them.
The puzzles detailed in the notes are a perfect example of that. There is a deeply complex mechanism they have to bypass involving celestial symbols.
Right. A sun, a moon, and a blank triangle.
It's a door that only opens when specific cosmic logic is applied. But the only entity in the cave who knows the cipher is a stubborn, uncooperative gnome named Nimblefoot.
And how do they extract that information? It's wild.
Zeteria, the warlock, has to use her magic to cast Charm Person, artificially inducing a state of deep trust in Nimblefoot.
Even then, he is reluctant.
Yeah. She has to physically cut off all lock of his hair as some sort of arcane collateral, and finally persuades him to write down the solution to the puzzle.
They are literally hacking the minds of the cave's inhabitants to progress. It's a forceful extraction of ancient knowledge.
And it builds to their encounter at the Forge of Spells itself. This is where the themes really crystallize.
They finally reach the forge. This is the mechanism capable of producing magical items that could alter the balance of power across the continent.
But who is guarding it? A spectator. This is a floating, multi-eyed monstrosity created centuries ago by a powerful ancient wizard named Rupert.
They also encounter a territorial wraith named Mormesk.
Right. But the kicker is the spectator. Even after the party proves themselves, even after they clear out the immediate threats, the spectator flatly refuses to let them take any of the enchanted items forged there.
It just denies their request.
This is a vital metaphor. It highlights a crucial theme of the entire chronicle. Immense power is always guarded, trapped, or gatekept by the ghosts of the past.
Yeah, the Forge of Spells represents a level of industry and arcane superiority that could uplift the entire region. But it is surrounded by the undead, literal echoes of a bygone era clinging desperately to their hoards.
The spectator is the ultimate bureaucratic guardian.
It really is. It has outlived its creator by centuries, yet it stubbornly enforces rules that no longer make any logical sense.
It's a metaphor for institutional gatekeeping.
Precisely. You can look at the wealth, you can even interact with it temporarily, but the system is hardwired to ensure you never actually own it. The system is rigged to keep power static.
That is a staggering observation. And speaking of static power systems trying to assert control, when our heroes finally emerge from Wave Echo Cave and trek back to Phandalin, they discover that the social dynamics of the town have completely shifted yet again.
The power vacuum they created by deposing the Red Brands did not stay empty while they were underground.
No, it certainly did not. Into this space steps a brand new, incredibly shiny rival adventuring party.
And who sent them? The Lord's Alliance.
The institutional superpower arrives just in time to claim the victory. Let me list the members of this new team because the contrast is hilarious.
Oh, please do.
Okay, our party is covered in bone dust and goblin blood. The new arrivals sound like a fully funded, focus-grouped corporate strike team.
Yeah, you have Sir Alistair, a paladin in gleaming, unblemished full-plate armor.
Isabella, a rogue in tailored black leather. Roland, a fighter with a perfectly cinematic scar.
Alara, a wizard draped in pristine elven robes.
And Gizmo, a gnome artificer wearing a quirky patchwork leather jacket.
This is a textbook deployment of soft power mixed with hard assets.
I have to pause and look at the sheer audacity of this timing. Isn't it incredibly, maddeningly convenient that the very moment our scrappy, independent contractors do all the traumatic, dirty work of clearing out the syndicates, fighting the undead, and securing the region?
This well-funded corporate team suddenly parachutes in to establish jurisdiction.
Yes, it feels exactly like a startup company doing all the grueling ground-level innovation, only to have a giant conglomerate swoop in for a hostile takeover the second the product is viable.
It is an incredibly apt analogy. The Lord's Alliance is risk-averse. They waited until the highest physical risks were mitigated.
Our party bled for Phandalin, they fought in the mud, dealt with the extortionists, and survived the ambushes.
Now that the area is relatively stable, and more importantly, now that the location of the Forge of Spells is confirmed, the Lord's Alliance sends in their branded official representatives.
Right, they are there to establish dominance, control the narrative, and ensure the newly uncovered resources flow back to Neverwinter.
But what I find so endearing about our original party is that they don't immediately react with hostility.
Yeah, you'd think there would be a massive tavern brawl. But the notes describe this incredibly wholesome, cross-factional interaction at the Stonehill Inn.
Zeteria actually walks over and buys a round of drinks for the corporate adventurers. They pull their tables together.
It's a fascinating moment of professional respect among mercenaries. And it leads to this delightful scene. Gizmo, the gnome artificer from the corporate team, is showing off this intricate, clockwork mechanical mouse he built.
And Pandar, our druid, decides to have some fun. He uses his magic to physically transform into a cat.
As a cat, he wagers 1 gold piece that he can catch the mechanical mouse.
The chronicler uses their mathematical shorthand, again here, noting the druid scores a 19 out of 20 on an agility metric.
Yes, it's a near-perfect acrobatic pounce. He snatches the whirring mechanical mouse right by the tail.
And Gizmo is so impressed by the display that he actually gifts the incredibly expensive clockwork toy to Droop the Goblin.
Which is actually quite profound when you think about it.
It is. You have a transfer of high technology from the institutional fashion, brokered by the independent faction, directly to the most historically marginalized faction.
It is a beautiful moment of camaraderie.
But we must not lose sight of the fact that this bonding is happening in the shadow of a massive impending climax, because these two teams are about to be forced to work together to face an existential threat.
Right. Because Harbin Wester, who is somehow still desperately clinging to his title of mayor, makes a frantic public announcement.
He is offering a staggering 1,000 gold piece reward to anyone who can kill a dragon that has taken up residence nearby.
So both the independent team and the corporate team pack up and head to the ruined town of Thundertree to hunt a young green dragon.
And this is where the narrative explodes. This isn't just a monster hunt, it's a collision of 3 entirely different ideologies.
Let's set the scene at Thundertree, because the tactical breakdown in the logbook is phenomenal. The tension described in the notes is astronomical.
Thundertree isn't just an empty ruin with a dragon sleeping in it.
No, it is currently occupied by 80 dragon cultists. 80.
A fanatical paramilitary force.
Exactly. These cultists are holding several villagers hostage, including a man named Rudolph. And their goal isn't just to worship the dragon. They are actively performing rituals to summon Tiamat, the multi-headed, apocalyptic god of evil dragons.
So you have a massive cult, civilian hostages, and a highly intelligent, toxic green dragon all in one place.
This requires a level of coordinated, multi-stage tactical execution that neither party has had to attempt before.
And they pull it off like an Ocean's 11 heist.
They really do. First, the stealth phase. Our heroes manage to acquire and disguise themselves in cultist robes.
The chronicler notes they achieved a statistical perfection on their stealth approach, slipping through a camp of 80 people completely undetected.
A natural 20 on stealth, basically. Then the execution phase. The combat combo they unleash on the dragon is a thing of absolute beauty.
Let's break down the mechanics of the assault.
Okay, it starts with Zateria, the warlock. She ritually casts a spell of absolute silence centered on the dragon's toxic green cloud.
This creates a terrifying auditory vacuum, preventing the dragon from using its sonic presence or commanding the cultists.
Then Alara from the corporate team steps up. She casts a high-level banish spell,
Which literally rips the dragon out of their dimension temporarily.
removing it from the battlefield just long enough for the combined parties to massacre the cultist leadership and free the hostages.
And then the dragon returns.
And when it snaps back into reality, they deliver the killing blow using environmental manipulation. Pander uses his magic to conjure a massive cloud of dense, flammable soot into the air around the dragon.
He then instantly transforms into a bird to fly straight up and escape the blast zone.
Right, and from the air, he casts Call Lightning. The lightning bolt strikes the suspended soot cloud, causing a massive thermobaric explosion.
The thermodynamics alone are devastating, and it grounds the dragon completely, allowing the heavy fighters to finish it off.
If we step back and explore the symbolism of this climax, it is deeply profound. Think about the three primary factions involved in this battle.
Yeah, the cultists represent raw, destructive, uncontrollable power embodied by the green dragon and their desire to summon Tiamat. They want to tear the existing world order down.
While the Lord's Alliance, represented by Sir Alistair's corporate team, represents organized, systemic, bureaucratic control. They want to regulate and own the world.
And where do our heroes fit in?
Our heroes are caught directly in the middle. They are the tactical executioners. They do not have the institutional backing and endless resources of the Alliance, nor do they have the fanatical, suicidal zeal of the cult.
They simply have each other and their sheer raw competence.
Right. They are the ones who solve the complex problems that the institutions are too slow and bureaucratic to fix, and that the cultists are too chaotic to manage.
They slay the dragon, they save the hostages, they're the undisputed heroes of the region.
But the adrenaline eventually fades, and as they march back to Phandelver, the bitter reality of their situation sets in.
They won the battle, but they are about to realize that the political landscape of the town they bled for has entirely shifted out of their control.
The aftermath of the dragon hunt is where the true hidden cost of their success becomes glaringly apparent. Let's look at the changing of the guard in Phandelver.
Mayor Harbin, who has been completely useless, cowardly, and corrupt this entire time, finally breaks.
Whether he is terrified of the dragon's inevitable mate seeking revenge, or more likely terrified of the rapidly shifting power dynamics now that the Lord's Alliance is in town, he announces he is fleeing.
He packs up his office.
But instead of honoring his previous agreement to give the heroes the deed to the local manor as a reward, he hands them exactly 11,113 gold pieces and runs out of town.
The specificity of that number, 1,113 gold, is fascinating. It suggests it wasn't a calculated reward, but rather the exact panicked liquidation of his remaining assets.
He emptied the safe and fled. But more importantly, who steps into the power vacuum left by his sudden departure?
A local business owner named Helia Thornton. She runs a miners' exchange.
The logbook heavily implies that Halia now controls the deed to the manor and essentially controls the town itself.
This is the crux of the geopolitical arc. Helia Thornton, acting as a proxy, and by extension the Lord's Alliance, have successfully orchestrated a completely bloodless coup of Phandelver.
A bloodless coup using our heroes as the blunt instruments.
Precisely. The politicians let the independent contractors take all the physical risks. The heroes bled to remove the Red Brand Syndicate.
The heroes risked their lives in the toxic caves to find the forge.
The heroes fought the cult and the dragon. And while they were out in the mud fighting monsters, Halia and the Lord's Alliance operatives were in offices doing paperwork.
They maneuvered the cowardly mayor out of office, they secured the property rights to the valuable land, and they established a stable, profitable frontier town firmly under their economic influence.
The heroes did the manual labor of regime change, and the politicians reaped all the geopolitical rewards.
It is infuriating.
Yeah.
But it is so incredibly realistic. And you can see the culture of the town shifting immediately to reflect this new, sanitized reality.
Yeah, Grista, the dwarf who runs the local tavern, immediately rebrands her establishment.
She changes the name from the Sleeping Giant to the Sleeping Dragon.
Yeah.
She even mounts the taxidermy head of the Green Dragon on the wall above the fireplace.
A head that Gizmo, the gnome artificer, crafted and preserved for her, completely free of charge. It is the ultimate commodification of frontier trauma. The visceral, terrifying threat of a dragon that nearly killed them all is now just a tourist attraction.
It's a piece of quirky decor designed to sell more ale to travelers. The raw history is already being paved over by commerce.
The trauma is literally just marketing now.
So with Phandelver firmly under new management, the party's time on the frontier is over. They receive an official summons to travel to Neverwinter.
This is the big city, the capital.
They are called to the imposing headquarters of the Lord's Alliance to meet with the top brass, a man named Lord Silverhand.
The physical transition from a muddy, dirt road frontier town to the polished marble halls of Neverwinter represents the final stage of their co-optation by the system.
But the logbook notes that even in the heart of the big city, they aren't safe. Right before they are scheduled to meet Lord Silverhand, Isabella the Rogue from the corporate adventuring team approaches them.
But she does it while completely invisible, whispering from the shadows.
She delivers a dire warning. The party has been officially marked for death by a powerful, sprawling crime syndicate called the Nightshade family.
And why has a major crime family targeted them?
Because during their travels, they acquired a highly dangerous, cursed painting. The Nightshades want it, and they are willing to assassinate the party to get it.
So they have jumped out of the local frying pan and directly into a geopolitical fire.
Exactly. They are rattled. So they go into their meeting with Lord Silverhand, and they seek his advice or protection regarding this cursed painting.
Silverhand, ever the smooth politician, suggests a seemingly generous solution. They should leave the dangerous painting locked inside his highly secure subterranean vault.
The party agrees. Lord Silverhand personally escorts Zetaria and Pandir down into the depths of the headquarters, but he insists that they be blindfolded for security reasons before entering the vault area.
Which is a standard operating procedure for state secrets, but Silverhand drastically underestimates the party's unconventional capabilities.
Hugely. Because Pandir, the druid, is wearing a magical item the Chronicle refers to as a green mask.
This mask grants him an ability called blind sight. It's essentially magical echolocation.
So even though his physical eyes are tightly covered by the blindfold, his magical senses are wide open. He can perceive the exact shape and density of everything in the room.
And what exactly does his magical echolocation reveal in the dark?
The notes describe it perfectly. He uses his blind sight and senses. A massive, unfathomable, staggering hoard of gold.
Mountains of coins, gems, and wealth.
Stacked endlessly in the dark beneath the headquarters of the Lord's Alliance.
We really need to break down the terrifying implication of that specific moment.
Please do.
Throughout this entire 31-page chronicle, we have watched people bleeding and dying for copper pieces. We watched the Red Brands murder a father to shake down his family for a handful of silver.
We watched our heroes risk their lives against a dragon for a bounty of 1,000 gold pieces.
And meanwhile, Lord Silverhand is sitting on a literal dragon's hoard of unimaginable wealth right under the city.
Exactly. This reveal perfectly encapsulates the absolute asymmetry of systemic power.
The Lord's Alliance has unfathomable generational wealth. When Farron offered the heroes a pouch of gold to spare glass staff, or when Silverhand offers them rewards, they are not making a sacrifice. It is literal pocket change to them.
The Alliance doesn't actually need the party's help because they lack resources. They are deliberately using their vast wealth to buy the party's loyalty.
They are purchasing competent, independent actors to ensure those actors never become a threat to the establishment.
Which brings us to the climax of the entire chronicle, the final ultimatum. Lord Silverhand, sitting atop his hidden mountain of hoarded wealth, makes the party an offer.
He offers to officially sponsor the group.
He tells them they will have the full backing, the resources, and the prestige of the Lord's Alliance behind them.
But there is a catch. There is always a catch with institutional sponsorship.
The catch is enormous. In return for this generous sponsorship, the party must leave the continent in exactly 2 weeks.
They are being given a ship and told to explore a brand new, entirely uncharted continent across the ocean called Zanrock.
This is where the political maneuvering reaches its absolute zenith. I have to point out the brilliant, insidious nature of this offer.
On paper, to a group of adventurers, it sounds like the ultimate reward, right? We're going to fund your next big expedition. You get a ship, you get supplies, go explore the unknown world.
But if you read between the lines, they aren't being rewarded. They're being drafted. They're being forcibly conscripted into a colonial expedition.
It is the perfect, bloodless political solution for Lord Silverhand. Think about this from his administrative perspective.
Okay, let's hear it.
This group of 5 individuals, Zeteria, Clarity, Sal, Cairn, and Pander, have proven themselves to be incredibly dangerous, highly effective, and entirely unpredictable.
They walked into Phandelver and toppled a local regime in a matter of weeks.
They circumvented his rogue agent. They literally exploded a dragon. They are a massive geopolitical wildcard.
If they stay in the local area, they might start looking too closely at the Lord's alliance.
They might realize the disparity in wealth. They might cause trouble.
So you get them off the board completely.
Precisely. You weaponize their competence for your own imperial expansion. By sending them across the ocean to Zanrock, the Alliance removes a potential domestic threat and simultaneously uses them as a vanguard.
The heroes will land on Zanrock, face the extreme dangers, map the territory, and conquer new lands.
And all the new resources and wealth they find will legally belong to the Lord's Alliance. It is colonialism dressed up in the romantic language of a grand adventure.
It is chilling when you lay it out like that. We watch them go from being independent, scrappy gig workers to local dragon-slaying heroes to ultimately becoming expendable pawns in a global empire's expansion strategy.
Which brings us to our synthesis. What an incredibly dense, layered journey to unpack from just 31 pages of handwritten notes.
It truly is a masterwork in narrative escalation.
It demonstrates a fundamental truth: a small group of highly capable individuals can physically alter the world around them.
They have the agency to save towns, they can slay monsters, they can rescue the oppressed and elevate people like Droop.
But despite all that localized physical agency, they can still find themselves completely outmaneuvered by systemic institutional power. The Lord's Alliance didn't need to swing a single sword to win the region. They just needed to control the bureaucracy and own the board.
And it makes you wonder how often we see this exact pattern play out in the real world, whether you are looking at modern corporate acquisitions, political history, or even grassroots social movements.
How often do we see the raw, dangerous, ground-level hard work of independent innovators ultimately co-opted, rebranded, and absorbed by larger organizations with deeper pockets and much longer agendas?
The disruptors build a value, and the conglomerates buy the disruptors.
It is a recurring cyclical theme of human history, perfectly encapsulated in a stained, handwritten logbook.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought. Think back to that moment in the dark, underneath Neverwinter.
When Pander was blindfolded.
Right. Trusting his hosts, but used his magical sight to perceive that impossible, staggering mountain of gold hidden in the Lord's Alliance vault. It begs the question.
Were the true bandits of this story the dirty mercenaries in Phandelver, shaking down a small-town tavern for a few copper pieces?
Or were the real bandits the polished politicians, hoarding mountains of gold in the dark, while smiling and sending brave heroes across the ocean to conquer new lands for them?
Think about who really writes the rules of the game.
And we'll see you on the next Deep Dive.